A bit more than 5 years ago, something happened that I never thought would happen, not to me at least. I lost my job, the best job I've ever had, working with the best group I've ever known. Though to complete the picture, also in the most challenging environment I've ever experienced. Not to put too fine a point on it, I was fired, canned, sacked, pink slipped, defenestrated, marched out with my stuff in a cardboard box. It was sudden, it was traumatic, it was painful, it was unfair. And at the age of 61, it was scary, vertiginously, dark night of the skull, scary. But oddly, it was also one of the best things that ever happened to me. First off, if I hadn't left that job, I'd probably be dead now. The numbers that stare back at me now as I fiddle with my do-it-at-home blood pressure monitor are concerning enough. 5 more years in that job surely would have put me in stroke territory. But it's much more than that. The years since have proved to be among the best of my life, full of learning, challenges, chances to be useful, joys big and small. Our topic tonight has been what's next. Well, we've all just endured an unprecedented year, seeded with shocks both communal and personal. It's been stressful, a time of wrenching griefs, numbing boredom, percolating anxieties, and some deep disappointments with the behavior of our fellow humans. It has been disorienting. But now we have a chance to merge from the other side, to craft together a new normal. Yet some of us seem to be hesitating, clinging to lockdown, afraid to go outside, both literally and figuratively. Some of that, I guess, is inevitable. But here's something about Americans that social psychologists tell us they see from their research, and something I've seen in friends and in some students I teach. Many of us, including some of the most comfortable and sheltered, have a kind of collective anxiety disorder. We've developed a habit of catastrophizing, even when there's not a genuine catastrophe like COVID. We make anxiety, fear of harm, suspicious of others our first principles. We court trauma. We find it around every corner, even as we demand to be protected from it. We resist resilience, and we can be very judgy about those who don't join us in our huddle of anxiety. So please, Lord, I don't want to be in the mode of humble brag, but in the hope of being helpful, let me tell you about some of the great stuff that happened to me because I was forced to endure the most traumatic moment of my work life. The good stuff started the very night I was cashiered. My staff and some others from my now suddenly former employer gathered at a Center City bar to drink away the shock and insisted my wife Eileen and I come. The experience was very much like attending my own wake. A very raucous Irish wake. People were drinking, hugging, telling stories, laughing, tearing up, all by way of letting me know that I meant something to them, and they were pissed about what happened. Going on unemployment was a small price to pay for a night like that. The next morning, I woke with a massive tempo-pounding hangover, but also the feeling that overnight an iron anvil had been surgically removed from my chest. My sense of relief exceeded my sense of, my God, what's next? How will we pay the bills? About 6 weeks later, our first grandchild was born. With nothing but free time, I was able to savor fully that extraordinary joy, along with being able to be present, sometimes even at 3 a.m., to help Brian's frazzled, dazzled parents navigate those first overwhelming days. I had, and I took, the time to think about what I wanted to be when I grew up. Intention were two deeply rooted elements of my identity, being a journalist and being a Philadelphian. I had to decide which was more important. Baby Brian made that one easy. No way was I moving us 100 miles away from that little bugger just so I could plop down one more time in some newsroom. My wife Eileen was a boon, not only because she's infinitely patient, supportive, and wise. Thanks to her job at CHOP, she also has gold-plated health coverage. Never underestimate how vital such a safety net can be, and how vulnerable its absence leaves millions of Americans. So I was a kept man, with my wife's bennies protecting me. But that made my situation more tenable than it is for lots of others who lose their job. I needed work and income, but not a job. Doing the work I'd done as a journalist in one town for 25 years, I did know lots of people who run things. And my firing had been somehow Sunday page one news in the Enquirer. So in the coming weeks, when I would call some of those people, they all knew why. So in each call, the first thing out of my mouth was, want you to know I don't need a job. Just checking whether there's some work you need done where I could be of help. And the sighs of relief on the other end of the phone were audible. So, long story short, over the last 5 years, I've been able to cobble together all the work I could want as a consultant and executive coach. And yes, very oddly, being fired but somehow surviving it apparently makes one desirable as a coach. Anyway, I've had the chance to help reinvigorate a lagging public radio station, to help get a small but meaningful law passed in New Jersey, to help a business school, an airport, and a cemetery grapple with their challenges. And I've crisscrossed my state, rousing and equipping people to fight the gerrymander in that project you just saw in the video. And I've had plenty of time to hold Brian and his little brother in my arms and rock them to sleep, to take long walks with my wife, to host story slams, to work on shrinking my golf handicap, which stubbornly resists my efforts. I have been extraordinarily lucky, I know that. After a year of loss, grief, and pain for so many, any hint of gloating about that would be contemptible. So I'm telling this tale only because I hope it provides some evidence for a piece of wisdom from that old baseball sage, Branch Rickey, who said long ago, luck is the residue of design. Luck is the residue of design. So yeah, you can see catastrophe around every corner and live in a defensive crouch. But far better, though, to build up your resilience and learn to find luck and opportunity inside of challenges, both personal and communal. Now, there's no foolproof protection against calamity. People sometimes do fall without a net, and people have died. So many, too many in the last year. But we, the lucky ones who somehow get to survive, we owe it to our neighbors to do more than retreat into that crouch. We need to be resilient and a little brave, to get out there and do something bold and useful with our luck. Luck is the residue of design. As we ponder what's next, I'd urge you, I'd beg you, start planning and training really hard to be lucky.